Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Galaxy Tech Darklord here, and I'm back for the Cyber Dragon deck profile for the January 2014 format. This consists of the new cards. It's a great budget deck to build because pretty much all of the cards from here were in the Cyber Dragon structure deck that was released. I mean, yes, they didn't release Transmodify in it, but there's some other great cards in it as well. So even if you're not making the Cyber Dragon deck, I'd very much recommend that you buy the structure deck. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. There are one or two proxies in here which I'm not very proud of, but I couldn't get hold of the actual cards because they either cost too much or no one actually has them for trades at my locals. So I will get right into the deck. For the monsters, of course, the 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. We need this card because this is what the deck revolves around. I don't think I need to say any more. And then we run the 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Core. This is very much one of the monsters that you're going to be opening because it searches out any of your Cyber Spell or Trap cards, and when it's in your graveyard you can banish it while you control no monsters, and your opponent does, to special summon a Cyber Dragon. So it is in effect a Cyber Dragon from your graveyard. So yeah, and because we're not running Cyber Dragons Y or Proto Cyber Dragon in this deck, because they are, with the new support cards that are out, they're a bit obsolete and not needed. So then 3 copies of Cyber Dragon Drei. When it's normal summoned, all Cyber Dragons become level 5, and on the field and graveyard it's a Cyber Dragon. It also has a really good effect which has synergy with Cyber Network. When it's banished, you can target one Cyber Dragon you control, and it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects for the rest of the turn. It's a very great card to run because it can get a couple of your plays going, and it's more related to Cyber Dragons than the previous support that was released for them. So it's a great card. I like it a lot because it's also a great beater. Instead of having 1500 attack and then gaining it when it attacks, it just has it all the time. So then 3 copies of Cyber Valley. This is your stall card. It's funny running this card because even though your opponent could identify what you're running with it can be used in a variety of different decks. So, and you can use this with Machine Duplication as well, which will get out the other 2 from your deck. So it's a great card. Then one Cyber Eltanin. This is your field clearer, I guess. You can banishing all light machine types from your field and graveyard to special summon it. 500 attack for each one, and then just wipes all other monsters out, which is pretty good. And your opponent really can't. There's not much your opponent can do to stop it because it's not a destroy effect. It just sends them to the graveyard. And then for preference, Machina Fortress, because it's a deck of machines. If you get this and no other cards that have any help, this card can at least make use of that. And then we have 2 copies of Light Hex Sealed Fusion. It's a Cyber Dragon deck, and you have a heavy amount of fusions, so why wouldn't you really? Yeah. So that's the monsters. Onto the spells. We have the 3 copies of Cyber Repair Plant. This is your rotor for the deck. When you have a Cyber Dragon in your graveyard, you can activate one of the effects, generally to add a light machine type monster from your deck to your hand. And when you have 3 Cyber Dragons in the graveyard or more, you can activate both of the effects in sequence. Unfortunately, you can't shuffle one into your deck and then add a light machine type monster. It has to be add a light machine type monster and then shuffle one into your deck. So then the 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. This is just for back row buster because this format is a bit more heavy on that. That's about it for the MST. Then 2 copies of Machine Duplication. You can use primarily, as you may have seen in my combo vid, You can use this with Cyber Dragon Core and get all the copies of Cyber Dragon out because Cyber Dragon Core is treated as a Cyber Dragon. You can also use this with Cyber Valley because it also has less than 500 attack, and it's also a useful card. You can use it to draw 2. So I wouldn't run 3. I wouldn't recommend running 3 because it can cause inconsistencies at times if you don't have any of those cards, because there's only a total of 6 in the total monster lineup, which is about less than just over half, but it's not a good card to have at 3. So limiter removal, they're all machines, so you can, and it's really funny to run limiter removal because even if you fail to get your opponent, then you can still go into Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon or open up a fusion or anything. And then for fusions, we have 3 copies of Power Bond. There's no reason why you shouldn't run this card. It's way better than Polymerization. It doubles the attack. Consequently, you take damage equal to the original attack of the fusion monster, but it's worth it. And 1 Overload Fusion, because this is fusions, you can go into Over Dragon with this. I've never done that with this deck, but you can do that. So that is all the spells. Finally, for the main deck, the traps, we have 1 copy of Cyber Network. This is searchable via Cyber Dragon Core, as is Cyber Repair Plant. I'd only run 1 because it's not great mid-game. To open it up at first is very great. It is also basically your replacement for Return of the Different Dimension, since that got hit by the ban list. The drawback is you lose all your back row when it summons back all the banished light machines, but it's worth it. And then the proxies that I run in this deck are the 2 DNA Surgery. Because a lot of decks at the moment are very type sensitive, such as Bugens, until Primal Origin comes out, this is a great card to run because your opponent can't really do much against DNA Surgery once that. I mean, yes, they can side in Royal Decrees, but that's getting 2. And this is a big benefit for you because when you have a Cyber Dragon and your opponent has a swarm of monsters, you can just send them all to the graveyard and get a Chimera Tech with like 6,000 plus attack or something. Then 2-dimensional prisons. You get this with the Cyber Dragon structure deck, 1 in each. It's a great card to run because it solves the problems that some of the monsters have. So like Lead Yoke and Mecha Phantom Beast Dracosac. It may be that I'm just a bit paranoid about them, but I like running Dimensional Prison in this deck because it has more of a guarantee that your opponent's not going to get the monster back. So then we also run 2 Call of the Haunted because we need that agent to actually get some stuff out of our graveyard other than Cyber Repair Plant. And we are going to need this because, you know, when you have a Cyber Dragon in your graveyard, you might need it the next turn. So it's there for that reason. And then the 3 copies of Trapstun we run because this format is, as I've said before, a bit more back row heavy. It's not going to cause major problems for you because this isn't like an Infernity deck. It's not based on back row. It can hurt Infernities a lot. Being an Infernity player myself, it is quite a nasty card to use. But it is a necessary card to use. And then finally we'll run 1 Solemn Warning just because that is it's a way to stop the big XC summonings that you don't want. And if it's a very big summoning condition, so like it can only be summoned by this, then using this, it's 2,000 life points down, but then your opponent really can't do much to get it back. So that concludes the main deck. And onto the extra deck. People run 2 of these, but I run 3 Cyber Dragon Novas because I find it more comforting to run 3 because I know that there's a third one if I need it. It's great because if you have a suitable amount of Cyber Dragons in your graveyard and a suitable amount of sources in your hand or on your back row, you can go into 3 of these and then make a Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, which has got about 4,000 attack. So it's a good card. You get your Cyber Dragons out the graveyard, and it can be any Cyber Dragon, and then banish one to double its attack during either turn. Well, I say double. It gains 2100 attack. And then we run Constellar Pleiades because it's a rank 5. It bounces your opponent's monsters. It's a great card. And then 1 Ptolemy M7 because you can go on to Pleiades with this. Once you can't use Pleiades anymore, and then it also has basically the same effect, except you can bounce cards from the graveyard as well. So then, because we've got rank 5s and 6 and 1 rank 6, we've got a Gaia Dragon and a Thunder Charger because it's Gaia Dragon, it's a piercer. It's just that next step after you can't really use any of your rank 5s anymore. Then we run a Shark Fortress. As Cyber Twin Dragon proves, it's great to have a second attack, so using Shark Fortress is pretty good. Then we move on to fusions now, so we've got 3 copies of Cyber Twin Dragon because this is really what you're going to go into. It's a lot easier to go into this than anything else. Then 2 copies of Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. You could run 3 if you want to feel a bit safer. Unfortunately, DNA Surgery is not always going to be around, so you can spam your opponent, but it's a great card to run nonetheless. We then run 1 copy of Chimera Tech Overdragon because it's not so important because you got Cyber Dragon, you got Cyber Eltanin. It's not necessary really to run it. And then we run 2 copies of Cyber End Dragon to finish that because Cyber End Dragon is just an awesome monster. It's a 4000 piercer. You can summon it with Cyber Dragon Nova, and I have actually been able to do that before, so running Cyber End Dragon is not a bad choice, and I would run 2 because of that. Right, and you could, although that's already 15 cards, you could also take out something for Tyros Keeper of Genesis because it's another rank 5 that you can play. Onto the side deck, it's more of just cards that I can't run the main deck because there's not enough space. So, another Cyber Eltanin if you really want that. It's going to add some inconsistencies, but it's great. And 1 copy of Honest because it's all light, so I'm trying to keep it more to the more type-based build. But Honest is a great card to run because it gives you that extra attack. So if your opponent attacks your Cyber Dragon Core, you can use this and then just bounce it back. Then we run 3 copies of Stark Goblin. I wouldn't run this card because the deck is quite consistent, but you're gonna put your opponent's life points up at 3. There's an up and a down for it. I could run it, but I don't really want to. Then, for those of you who are conscious of Power Bond but want more draw power, you can call on your 1 Day of Peace because the damage from Power Bond would be negated by this because you can't take damage until the end of your opponent's next turn, and then you get the extra card as well, which is really great. Then 2 copies of Different Dimension Reincarnation because you're going to be banishing at least a couple of cards with this deck, so getting them back in a shorter amount of time is great. Then a Light of Redemption because you're banishing stuff again, I guess. Then a spare copy of Overload Fusion. I've never felt that I really want to slide this into the main deck because I already have an Overload Fusion and I haven't actually used it, so if anything I could actually side out the Overload Fusion. And then 1 Kaiser Colosseum because this isn't a really, really, really huge swarming deck. It's 1 or 2 monsters per turn at minimum. So, and then the Book of Moon for, in replacement for the Veiler, I guess, for the effect Veiler. Then because this deck is really single attribute, you can run Gozen Match because your opponent might not be a single attribute. Non-aggression area because I just like to side this with everything because it just takes away your opponent's turn. And 1 Barrel Behind the Door. It's another Power Bond conscious card. If you go Power Bond with Cyber End Dragon, you can attack them, and then if you don't finish them that turn, then you can just use Barrel Behind the Door and whack them with 4,000 points. So that is the end of the deck profile. Thank you for watching. I hope you like it. If you think there's anything that I should have put in and replaced instead, then feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, whatever you want. Thank you for watching.